everybody. Welcome to the InPsight Show. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. And you guys, I am really excited this week. I got to tell you what, I was able to get one of my dearest pals who had an open spot in her schedule to come on the podcast today. And I want to introduce to you somebody who I am so super proud of because she has been producing television and docuseries and reality series and films for years. And honestly, I don't know if you understand how difficult that is to do. And especially, you don't see a lot of women who produce in the paranormal genre, in the metaphysical genre, in the spiritual genre, let alone produce it all. So I kind of feel like we've got a little bit of a legend here. And I want to introduce you to my friend, Rene Barnett. You guys, Rene, she's a veteran reality and docuseries television producer, and she's been specializing in these entertainment specials, all kinds of series, documentaries, and lots of reality and docuseries-based programming. And Rene has produced hundreds of television hours, and her credits include programming for the most, actually for a lot of USA networks here in the United States, as well as many cable channels across in America, the UK. Her directing credits, you guys, include some of the premier specials and series of the reality TV, and I'll even say docuseries television genres, including Ripley's Believe It or Not. I love that show. Unmasked, established to produce Rene's first theatrical film. And that is Bloodline. You might have watched it on Netflix, actually. A documentary investigation into the marriage of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. The Jesus, guys. And many, many, many others. And Rene's professional background, you guys, spans lots of other media as well. As a print journalist and radio producer and personality, she was managing UFO magazine. She was the managing UFO magazine editor. Sold out theaters, you guys, and a lot of critical acclaim. I mean, Bloodline. Think about it, right? You've got Jesus and Mary Magdalene. Hello. So I just want to mention that returning to her radio roots 13 years ago, Rene established and launched Nighvision Radio, which is still on the air over at KGRA Digital Broadcasting. I love it. And it's a great show, you guys. It's a weekly talk show covering conspiracies, hidden history, and the paranormal. And, from 2007 to 2013, you might recognize Rene's name because she hosted Dancing with Ghosts with renowned psychic Rebecca Fearing. So you might remember that. And right now, Rene works with her longtime television colleagues at Dark Zone Productions, most recently producing the first of its kind worldwide live streaming event, The House, from the real haunted house portrayed in the movie The Conjuring, you guys. How messed up is that? Rene is an admitted history geek, and I love that about her. And she and her research partner, historian James Martin, it's actually Dr. James Martin, she calls him the brains of the outfit, leads tour groups in America and Europe following the trails of their research to historical mystery sites. So I wanted to let you know who we're talking to. Rene, welcome to the show today.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Can't wait to continue our extended conversations and let everybody listen in.
It's so true. Rene and I were talking earlier today, you guys, and we were visiting about 10,000 things, as we very often do. And today's focus with Rene is going to be about how to blend the mystical, the paranormal, the metaphysical, with current events and the political. And the reason that I'm taking Rene in the hot seat on this is A, she can hack it, and B, well, I think you can, sister. And, and B, we have been in this industry for a long time, and there's a lot that goes into deciding that you're going to have a discussion about politics, especially when you've got a long time following, which you do, Rene. And so, Rene, I'm just going to kick it right to you right here. What has been your experience in trying to blend current event energy, political energy, with spiritual energies in media? What has been your experience with that right now?
Well, I'm afraid I'll have to admit that it's largely been as an observer because I was, unsure and sort of uncomfortable about bringing anything political into my show because for fear of, alienating half my audience one way or the other.
Sure.
But more recently, as tides are sort of changing and attitudes and sort of just the consciousness of the nation has seemed to be experiencing, some sort of uplifting in recent events. And I noticed the change, and I thought, this is what it's all about. I mean, there's two ways that we can look at this country. We can look at it like, this country's going to hell. We're going to have a civil war.
Yeah.
It's a communist country and blah, blah, blah. First of all, we got problems with words in this country and what they really mean.
Yeah.
But it's like the, experiencing some joy for a change after a lot of negative input, and name calling and all that stuff. And just bad news after bad news after bad news. And then to kind of pick up and, hone into the energy that's being created now, it just feels so much better. And it's a joyful thing. And I mean, that there's nothing political about a joyful spirit.
Right.
But I think the words that are being said, the goals that are being set, the promises that are being made, I think, do have an effect on our spirits.
Yeah.
And so, and I know where you stand pretty much, and I think you know where I stand pretty much in the voting box.
Sure.
I'm definitely lean way left because, or I don't know if it's way left, but it's left. Because I believe that is the direction of helping others and supporting others. And I just feel like that's what we need to be doing while we're here. And that's probably a big, big, big part of our lesson.
I would agree. I would agree dramatically.
So if the politics affects us spiritually, then there's the intersection right there.
Yeah.
And, obviously one has to be super careful.
Sure.
When you're talking publicly, because you might influence someone and you want to, make sure you're, putting forward your highest and best thoughts because, you could cause someone, a disruption in their family or, mental anguish or anything like that. But my fervent hope and wish for this country is that we get past this division and in name calling and hatred toward each other.
Oh, sure. Yep.
And unite as a country. And I mean, there are people that are on the very conservative side that I love very much,
Sure.
And it shouldn't be, that people have to think the way I do in order for me to be accepting of them or tolerating them or, whatever. Just as, they should allow me my free thinking. But I don't know, I'm rambling now.
No, you're not rambling because it's really interesting. I found that with a lot of people, especially now, I work in obviously the spiritual arts, the metaphysical arts, but my job overall is consciousness. And we cannot separate consciousness from politics, because politics is a reflection of a consciousness. And unfortunately, what was supposed to be civic service has now turned into a bunch of political franchises and high multi-billion-dollar fundraising tactics.
Yeah.
And, and I can understand why people get sick and tired of it. I've got a colleague who she's a great colleague, actually. Her name is Tosha Silver. And Tosha you might recognize Tosha Silver. She's a New York Times best-selling author, and, she's been on Oprah back in the day and done all kinds of things in consciousness, and started out doing a bunch of psychic work, and now is, of course, in consciousness more so. Big author, beautiful human being. And Tosha was on Facebook, and she was speaking out with her opinions about the consciousness issues that we have. And of course, Tosha is receiving a lot of support, yet she's also receiving a lot of, kind of reminds me of the Chicks, Shut Up and Sing.
Yeah, yes.
The former Dixie Chicks, who were, of course, terrorized with Natalie Maine's reference to her dislike for George W. Bush. And isn't that...
It was nothing. It was almost nothing,
I know.
Compared to the rhetoric today. I don't even think anybody would notice that now.
No, it's so true. Isn't it weird?
Crazy.
It's so crazy. So, we've got this... Rene and I were talking, everybody, earlier about how hard it is, because I'm with you, Rene. I mean, I have people that I love dearly that are longtime conservatives. I have people that I love dearly who are really, really into the Make America Great Again movement. And it's intriguing because from a spiritual perspective, and I'd love to get your take on this, my observation has been that from a spiritual perspective, the folks that I know anyway, who are really into MAGA up here in Montana, they are the kindest, sweetest people you have ever met in your life. And when I've attempted to speak with them, just very lightly, because I don't like to disrespect others' opinions, even though personally I'm not a Donald Trump fan, and that goes way the heck back to when I was in LA hanging out with you, Rene, and, back in the day when The Apprentice was being shot, and people who worked with Trump had horrible experiences with him, and that's when he was a Democrat,
Yeah. Yeah, if you worked in production during that time of The Apprentice, you already knew all about Donald Trump, because even though everyone had to sign non-disclosure agreements, there were still people like my really good friend who worked on it who couldn't help but, sort of do a rant, about what she saw.
Yeah.
When she would get home. Otherwise, she would have probably lost her mind. But and now, of course, people are breaking those NDAs and they're coming out about it. But it's really not about Donald Trump.
Agreed. You go, girl.
It's about us. It's about us. And so, I mean, we created the situation.
Yes.
For some reason, or we weren't getting it, and it's being created for us to say, here's the kick in the butt you need, to realize how divided you are and, do something about it. So I do. And honestly, I keep hearing and reading and talking to people about human ascension. And how we're at a time where, we've sort of reached critical mass. Enough people have sort of gotten to the place where it can go ahead and flip on over into something new, which is really something old. Yeah. But it's back again. And so if indeed there's anything to all this, and there really is a return of the divine feminine, then I don't see how things could carry on with that kind of division, because women are fixers, Yes. And nurturers, and we we make things work. So I think if we're going to more feminine energy, and that doesn't mean women are going to rule the world.
Sure.
It just means that people are going to obviously connect more with that feminine energy. And I think I'm seeing, and I don't know if anyone would agree with this, but I'm seeing this new masculinity being portrayed, in people like, the new vice presidential pick on the Democratic side, Tim Walz.
Yep.
I mean, he's a tough guy. He's a gun-toting, guy wearing flannel shirt wearing guy that, can fix your radiator. And he's a football coach. But yet, the other side is making fun of him because he saw that young girls had personal hygiene products in schools for free, all across the state.
Which, God forbid we actually have access to, hygiene products.
I mean, didn't you remember being, like in middle school and stuff? Yes. And there was always an accident. Always.
Oh, man.
It was horrible.
My very first...
Oh, did you see her?
God.
She had to go home.
But Rene, my very, very first period that I ever really had at school, it was horrifying. Of course, it was the 80s. I had on white pants. And of course I did. And it just
mandatory.
Oh my God, it came on like a hell of fire. And I was little. I was like 13. I wasn't all like, hey, this is what you do. You carry this stuff. So you're talking about the divine masculine. And what I think is so intriguing about that is that when we're looking at spirituality, metaphysics, when we're looking at politics, we're looking at the reflection of the evolution of our societies. And you just brought up this evolutionary, people talking about human beings evolving and going to like 3D and 4D and 5D and 6D. I've heard 9D. One of the criticisms that Tosha had received, and I saw this on Facebook, was that the criticism was, I don't need to vote because all of this is a 3D illusion, and I've already ascended into 4 and 5D. And I will take the hit on this one, you guys. I was just like, are you freaking kidding me? Because, I can't fill my car up with gas with 4D gas. And my electric company is not taking my 4D money to pay my bills or my mortgage or my rent or whatever. And I do think that there is a fine line between understanding that we have participation down here and understanding that we are evolving as a race. And just to kind of really quickly loop back to the Donald Trump thing, a lot of my MAGA friends here in Montana, when I asked them, how can you vote for this individual who's done all these things? These people are they are such kind and good people, Rene. Okay. I'm telling you, like the shirt off your back, last dollar out of their bank account, people. That they literally cannot believe that there would be a human being as skeevy as Donald Trump. They think it's all fake because in their heart of hearts, they are super kind people that only hang around super kind people. So they don't believe any of that,
Yeah.
And when you're looking at the hearts of people, because it's so easy, I believe, it's so easy to just say, well, you're a liberal, to hell with you. You're MAGA, to hell with you. And I think right there, that's playing right into the playbook of some pretty dark energies that want to suppress, right, the evolution of humanity. And as you very aptly put it, we are at a 51% point. All it takes is 51% of anything, you guys, to create a predominant weight structure. And if we have 51% of the humans on Earth deciding that war and abuse and hideousness is no longer working for them, then we hit that ascension point, I believe, that you're talking about.
Yeah. And I believe that this, this chaos that we're in is what's going to be the catalyst.
Yes.
For something that I feel like now is unstoppable. I think we have reached our tipping point. I'm hoping that we have. I'm praying that we have. And it's not just the United States. I mean, there's a lot of division around the world. But it's definitely palpable here. And I mean, if you really want to get into the whole, don't mix politics with the spiritual.
Sure.
It's sort of like taking a holistic look, mind, body, spirit, because, okay, body, we know that, words and thoughts are energy and their power. And we all know people that are so negative and have such a negative outlook that they just kind of drain everyone around them. It's, they're like unwitting, spiritual vampires. They don't mean to do it, but that's the effect. And then by the same token, we all know people like Danielle Egnew who walks into a room and it's like, oh my God, sunshine has just come in. And everybody smiles and everybody laughs and has a good time. And, and it's measurable. It's measurable. And when you make an act of kindness towards someone, it actually physically raises your endorphin levels. It raises the recipient's endorphin levels, and it also raises the endorphin levels of anyone who witnesses an act of kindness.
Wow.
So it's measurable, it's real. So I don't honestly see how we can separate all of that.
Yeah, you're right.
And the mind part, I don't know if you know who Dr. Bandy Lee is.
I do not.
She was at Harvard, and she actually was one of the 25 psychiatrists that wrote the book about fascism being a mental illness that's contagious.
Wow. Okay.
So she characterizes fascism as not a political thing. It's a mental illness. And it definitely is contagious, and that's what's sort of been happening. And that's why, people are sort of hooking into anger and hate and, judging the other, whatever that other might be.
Yes. And I'm sorry, please continue.
I'm sorry. I'm just going on and on.
No, you're good.
Who wouldn't want to live in a world where we've got all these differences in ways of being, we've got all these different cultures and practices and, costumes and rituals and all kinds of things. I mean, who would want to live in a world where we just embrace everything and embrace each other and appreciate, things, the unique parts of other cultures and other people.
And that is...
Who doesn't want to live joyfully?
Yeah, there you go. Now, I got to tell you, Rene, who doesn't want to live joyfully? I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people who don't know how to live joyfully. This is my observation in working through the angelic realm and looking psychically out into the world and all the things. Is that we have such a world, you guys, such a world of people being abused and damaged and mistreated. And the idea of joy to a lot of people, guys, is incredibly foreign. And so if you see somebody talking about joy oftentimes, that's a pipe dream. That's something that somebody wished on when they were 6 years old and then that was snatched away when they were sexually abused. Or, the list is so deep, you guys. And Rene, the list is so deep as to how people fear joy. And a lot of times, too, you got to remember, since 2017, we have been working in and living in this ether. It kind of changed up in 2020 a little, but by then it was really planted. The roots were down. In this ether where people were encouraged to be abusive and nasty and rotten by the person who was at the top of the food chain in leadership in the United States, which was Donald Trump. So to have, this, and if you're talking to a Trump supporter, it's phenomenal because you have these folks who say, oh, well, I didn't notice that about him. Oh, well, he yelled a little. And some of these folks, of course, I'm not saying everybody who's a supporter of Donald Trump comes from an abusive background. However, I happen to know for a fact that some of these friends that I have who are big supporters of Trump had really rough marriages with people who were very dogmatic and authoritarian. And so it seems, or maybe had a father that was like that. It seemed more normal. And obviously,
right.
Right?
Permission.
And and it's like, oh, well, this is just granted. Normal. Yeah, and so these folks would be saying to me, oh, I don't really understand what you're talking about. And when we're talking about consciousness and division, Rene, working in media and doing your show every week and all the TV and the film that you've produced and whatnot, we produce. I've been a producer on a film and a director, and I've produced on Road Angel and a couple of other TV projects, and you don't want to alienate anybody. Yet when you look at authoritarianism, and I am with you, I would take Donald Trump right off the plate with this, Rene, because he's not the only authoritarian. However, if you look at it, and I've got a lot of friends in the psychology field that like to run psychological profiles, unofficially, of course, on Donald Trump. And Putin and Kim Jong-un and all of these people who have this mentality. So back to your point of it being a mental condition, there's a lot that a lot of my friends who work in the psychological field have determined that falls under, there's a lot of delusion, there's a lot of illusion, there's a lot of narcissism there. And I'm not saying everybody who supports Trump is a delusional or a narcissist. But that's where people will take this now. If you talk about the leader, you're talking about them.
Some people are just susceptible to a narcissist.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of people are susceptible to a narcissist. I mean, because they are talented at bringing you in, It's just what happens after you're in there that is the problem. But, they're not narcissists necessarily.
No.
They've come under the thrall of a narcissist.
And it becomes hard,
mean, that was what her Bandy Lee's whole thing was. She ended up, Alan Dershowitz threw a big fit, so she ended up not getting her tenure at Harvard.
Oh, man, that's rough.
And so she left and went to Columbia. I think she's Columbia in Oxford, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, she's, these guys all came out with this stuff years ago about these personality problems of this individual. And because they said, as medical doctors, they have a duty to warn.
Yeah.
And they view it as a mental illness that's spreading. And it is, I know what you mean about people not being able to really believe that some of the things that we know to be true now, some of the things that have been adjudicated in court and in other ways that we know about the wrongdoings and things. But it's like they just somehow think we're making much ado about nothing.
Yeah.
But like, for instance, I know a veteran, a disabled veteran that has an amputation, one lower leg, and he's a total Trump backer, just, very, very
fervent
vocal about it.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I just don't see how you could support him with the things that he has said about our military and the things that he's done to prevent them from getting the help that they need, with the Veterans Administration, the health and the burn pit treatments and stuff like that. And he goes, and I said, Don, he doesn't want to see any disabled veterans because he said it doesn't look good for me. He didn't want, they were going to he wanted this big military parade after he went to France when he first got elected, and Macron had that parade.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
They had their disabled veterans, in the parade they were honoring, and he wanted the parade, but he didn't want the disabled veterans because he said nobody wants to see that.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
And one guy, an amputee, John Kelly, the chief of staff, General John Kelly or whatever he was. Anyway, he brought this veteran to sing the Star Spangled Banner at some event at the White House or the Capitol. And before the guy even got off the stage, Trump was yelling at John Kelly and telling him, don't ever bring him back here again.
See, that's a consciousness right there. That is a consciousness issue. And when we're talking about consciousness in media, bringing this up, I'm sure I'm going to get some upset mail from people saying, "Oh my gosh, no, you're not over the top at all, Rene. I mean, you're spot on, and you're 100%. And the problem that I see in media is that if we try to tell the truth about what's happening, people get really angry. And I understand we all have our teams we like to vote for, okay? I mean, I love the Seahawks. My friends who are San Francisco 49ers fans think I'm an idiot, whatever. But we just root for our teams, man. And we all have our teams we root for, and you're not over the top. I just want to use this as a teaching example, really, about the fact that why are we not speaking in consciousness issues? This is a consciousness to shout out to somebody who gave their limbs for their country, in what they were doing with their whole heart and their whole body. I mean, and unfortunately, I've seen Donald Trump treat others like that as well. And so, this is not a Trump slam, it's a consciousness suggestion, because if we're trying to talk about consciousness, if you look at the Bible, if you look at the Quran, if you look at any holy book, you will find a passage in there that will talk about leadership and how leadership affects those below it, basically energetically as well as psychologically. And, when we had a leader, and I'm, fine, Rene, God, I live in Montana. I can deal with rough around the edges. I'm a plain-spoken person. I'm a musician. I can swear like a sailor. I'm not delicate. I'm not fragile. Yet when you have a leader who, of any place, and we just happened to have one for a while in the United States, and of course the United States energetically, right, Rene? We affect the whole world in such a profound way financially.
Oh my gosh.
God, with entertainment.
The world is watching.
It is. And I mean, how many programs have you yourself produced and directed that aired in the UK? A lot, A
lot, yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm talking to you from Los Angeles today, and I don't know if I mentioned that. However, when we talk about consciousness and you're saying, gosh, I hope I'm not over the top, I appreciate the mindfulness. However, these things actually happened. This person did these things. Now, if somebody's, if somebody still wants to support this individual, if they are okay with that consciousness or they don't believe it's real, that's okay too. That's the way their consciousness is set up. I'm not here to chastise anybody. I'm simply saying that as we go into, as those of us in media, when we're seeing blatant stuff happen, and we're not talking about it, it's dysfunctional. It's like watching somebody punch somebody in the face all day long and just not talking about the consciousness that's off there.
Well, consciousness and conscience.
Yeah.
Because, I just started thinking, maybe I'm being, what am I really doing? I'm not saying what I really feel, because I don't want to alienate people.
Same.
Well, why is that? Because I don't want to lose audience. Because I want to be popular. I mean, that's not a very high reason to do anything.
Oh,
Believe
man.
me, I've caught myself all up in my ego many, many times and go like, oh my God, what are you doing? You silly girl. But,
welcome to being human. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I tell you, our ego is something we got to monitor.
Yeah.
Because it can screw us up big time.
Yes.
Really big time. And it's just, you got to get that tiger by the tail.
And don't you think that right now we have really, in my mind, I should, that's kind of a leading question, don't you think? Actually, I'd like to know what you think about this. I feel as though we, as a society, have begun to panic about larger issues in the world on a spiritually conscious or subconscious level. Like, we're running out of space to grow food, and we're running out of clean water, and the planet is heating up, and we live in a socioeconomic climate that's crippling for a lot of people. So I feel like, Rene, in my observation, and I'd love your opinion on this, my observation is that people are reaching for a tangible bullet point that they can fire off at. They want a target that they can pour all of this miscellaneous fear onto. And I feel that people have really doubled and tripled and quadrupled down, putting all their eggs in one basket with characters like Trump. And to be fair in this conversation,
right.
I have some folks way left. I have some real heavy lefty friends. I'm a left-leaning voter in transparency. I have some really lefty voters that think I'm practically a Republican. They're so left. Really, and I mean, not that I wouldn't vote for a great Republican if one presented themselves. However, this is a very interesting topic because I'm interested in your opinion. Do you think that people are allowing themselves to get tossed into the boiling point of popular opinion to be able to feel a cause to rally around because they feel like the earth is just crumbling out around them? Or do you think it's something else?
I think they are in some ways, consciously or unconsciously, searching for a tribe.
Yeah.
To be a part of. I mean, because when you're all into that movement, you are all in, and it's, going to events, it's constantly taking in, conservative or right wing. I don't see, the thing of it is that's not really conservative.
No, it's not. Oh, go girl, you go on that. Go.
Because Liz Cheney is a conservative.
Oh God, yes. Oh my God, yes.
And I totally, would probably disagree with her on just about every single policy point. However, she is a for real conservative, and I can appreciate that because, I'm not arrogant enough to think that I'm always going to have the right answer because I'm always following this team.
Right, right.
I might see something else that, or that should be, or, there should be some kind of compromise or moderation or, it's not always black and white.
No.
So, and then, the fact that, she knew what she was doing. She knows she was, committing Harry Carey.
Oh, yeah.
With her own seat there. And, you got to give her credit for that.
Absolutely.
You really do. Although she's got the scariest dad in the world.
Well, you know what's interesting? So here okay, so get this. So here I am in Montana, right? And of course, Wyoming is our southern neighbor. And if you think about Montana, Wyoming are sort of like the city state. It's like a city state, right?
Yeah,
and
I get them mixed up.
And Wyoming is a lot more hardcore than Montana. Montana's a little softer. It's a little more wide open. Montana's not as... There's a harshness to Wyoming, and it's beautiful. And I have a lot of dear friends and family from Wyoming. Yet it's different. It's a different culture. It has less people. It has about a third as many people or half as many as Montana. So Liz Cheney, to your point, the Cheney dynasty, if you were a left-leaning voter, right, it's always like thought of Darth Vader and all the people. But here's Liz Cheney. Yeah, you're right. She blew it her chance, and she knew she was going to. And if in Wyoming to get elected again. And so when I think about the consciousness of this in media, we look at politics as a conscious reflection of where people's thoughts are. And that's really true because candidates will pick buzz phrases to drive up fundraising. Right? And one of the things that I've noted, Rene, is that especially when you're looking at consciousness and politics and media, it is so financially lucrative in media right now to tell people exactly what they want to hear.
It is.
Isn't that crazy? I mean,
it's scary.
It is scary. And you've got these networks, news networks on both ends of the spectrum that will tell people exactly what they want to hear. And in addition to that, you have fictitious fan blogs that pose as news sites like Newsmax. And Newsmax fans, if you tell them, you guys, this is just a bunch of, like, I could start a news site and call it Danielle's news site. That's how much journalism there is right here. But but they don't want to hear it. And the money, Rene, and you worked in media for years. The money that's available in telling people what they want to hear is you'll drown in that money. And so where is the conscience, do you think? Where is the conscience where all this lies, where you've got advertisers who are just throwing money at Fox and throwing money at MSNBC, and I mean, it is really scary. And I'll just mention this, and then I'm going to turn you loose to tell me all the things about media and the conscience there, is that I have a very left-leaning friend here in Montana who works with the Democratic Party who got really angry with me because I wouldn't basically unfriend people who are mega people on my Facebook. I've had to delete some comments, and I've had to block a few people because people are, they're kind of losing their boundaries there.
Yeah.
But, but she said to me, how can you, how can you let these people even in your sphere? And I said, because they're people. And if we stop dealing with each other as human beings, we're screwed.
That's exactly the dark agenda, is to keep us separated. I have to say, though, I am guilty of doing this, when I get Facebook friend requests. First of all, I have nearly 5,000 already, and I'm so dumb. I don't really know what happens. I know something changes when you get 5,000, and they make you like a fan page, or I don't know what it is.
Yeah, they do. They converted mine with that. Yeah.
But I go through, so I'm like, I've got maybe 50 more to go or something like that. And I get a lot of requests. So I go through them. And if I see, hateful comments, and yes, I admit it, if I just see a lot of pro-Trump stuff, I don't put them on my page, because I do hate it when they say stuff and then I have to block them.
Yeah.
I just rather not deal with it. But anyway, I admit it, I'm a big chicken.
Well,
I should just be dealing straight on.
Well, Rene, and to be fair.
But I get what you're doing. I totally get it. I mean, I totally see your point. And it's like, we are going to have to figure out some way to talk with each other, or it's just not going to be any good.
We're not going to have a society left. And to be fair to you, you're a huge empath. I know many, many people, and I know a lot of people on the right side of the spectrum who have blocked a lot of lefties because they don't want to hear about, they don't want to watch Trump get bashed,
I'm sure.
And for me, I mean, I very much have my opinions and whatnot. And I draw the line in the sand as a person in media because I've got a lot of people on my pages. And I draw the line in the sand when disinformation goes up there. I draw a line in the sand, those comments come off. And if people keep doing it, I will direct mail that person. And if they keep doing it, they're blocked. But I will try to allow people to at least have some sort of discussion. What I'm noticing, though, is because the heavy money in media is in polarization, especially with sponsorship, I'm noticing that more and more people are adopting these polarized bumper sticker phrases in trying to describe, really complex concepts with one another. And that's not going to work. And at some point, we've just got to be able to say, you and I just aren't going to agree on this. So cheers to the beer, and my vote's going to cancel your vote out, and let's have some courtesy. So here's something I'm very interested in your take on, as I'm just watching our time a little bit here. Media and money. We've all got sponsors, we've all got advertisers, all of these things, and you said something earlier when I said, my God, there's so much money in fringe media. And you said it's scary. You've been in media for 20, 30 years now. Can you expand on what you've watched in media consciousness, in who chases the money? Because this is all consciousness, you guys. Can you please expand on watching that money just start to dictate in this way compared to, say, maybe even 10 or 15 years ago? Would you say there's a difference, or has it always been like this?
I would say that, the media that's been affected, of course, on television is the news media, the so-called news media, because, it's not really news if it's just all opinion, but it masquerades as news, and people take it as news, unfortunately, and run with it, and end up becoming disinformed. And I'm criticizing the whole spectrum of television.
Oh, sure.
News.
Yeah.
Some are obviously worse than others, but they all do it because they're all in it for the money. But I think you and I have had a conversation before about how I feel, and I think you agreed, that television is dying.
Yes.
And so what we really are facing is, the social media and the online news and that sort of thing. And so I worry about dark money, foreign money, foreign interference. I mean, we've just, had the guy from Telegram arrested in France, in Paris, and Russia's just going ape over it. And there seems to be some sort of something that they don't want to come out. And it seems to have stemmed with a meeting that this guy had with Vladimir Putin. And then after the meeting, Telegram was immediately unblocked. And in Russia, it wasn't available. Plus, he was at a point where he was desperate for money because he had to pay like $300 million back to his investors or something. And suddenly his investors were paid off. And then there were the cancellations of the Navalny sites on Telegram. And so why would, that's supposed to be the ultimate free speech place.
Right.
And then, of course, because everything is so messed up in Russia, and they don't have their own communication systems that much, the Russian military were officially using Telegram for their communications.
Telegram?
So that obviously could be, that could obviously be another worry for Putin if he's under arrest in France. So it's like manipulation,
Yeah.
And one of the big, talking points that they've been pushing is that there's going to be a civil war.
And okay, so who has been pushing the Civil War things? I've seen lots of different civil wars around the world being pushed. So which one would you be referring to?
I would be referring to the Civil War in America.
Got it.
We're going to have a civil war. Civil war is coming. It's inevitable. We're in a civil war. Civil war, civil war, civil war. And so today, I believe 4 influencers were arrested for taking millions of dollars from a shell company covering for the Russian government, or RT, Russian television,
sure,
which is state-owned media, and not registering as a foreign agent, and so now they're in big trouble. There's 4 big right-wing podcasters, whatever, and
God. Did they know, Rene? Did they know?
I think one guy says he didn't know.
Okay.
He's protesting. Now, I don't know if that's true, and maybe they're just paying him because he was already using those kind of talking points, because, obviously these 4 people were all super right-wing. I'd never heard any of them or even heard of them. But since then, I've heard other reporters talk about how huge and how many followers they had. And I mean, like hundreds of millions and stuff.
Well, when I look into this, Rene, psychically for a long time, I have been seeing Russian, if you call them shell companies, paying a lot of pretty high-profile American media hosts, too. And, I mean, I've just kind of stayed off that topic a little bit. I've kind of alluded to it here and there, but, oh, my God,
I would not doubt, of course, I don't have any personal knowledge of all this stuff, but
sure.
I think it would be quite unsurprising to find out that there had been something like that going on with Tucker Carlson.
Oh, my God. Okay, you pulled him right out of my head. The interesting thing about Tucker Carlson, he was up in Montana. And I guess, I'm not sure if he's got family who lives here or they were vacationing or what, because Montana is sort of a hot spot for everybody pretty much, especially since Yellowstone took off. And he was up in the in the Livingston area, and someone literally walked up to him and started just unloading on him about what a terrible person he is. And this kind of blustery, weird guy he is on TV, which is kind of his character. He was just like, dude, he just kind of turned around and walked off. He was like, I'm not going to do this. And it reminds me of the old, the Rush Limbaugh days where everybody who worked in radio back then knew that Rush Limbaugh, he said all this stuff. He bellowed and did all these things, but didn't even really believe a lot of the stuff he talked about. But his sponsorship was so off the charts that he just kept playing that radio character, kind of like how Howard Stern played that radio character for a while. And eventually Howard Stern ditched that character because the guy who has sex with strippers kind of got old in the 90s. And of course, Rush Limbaugh held on to that character because
the Me Too movement.
The Me Too movement
damper on some of that stuff.
Oh, it did, and there's old, and I was never a big fan of his anyway. Howard Stern. I don't have anything in common with guys who want strippers to sit on their laps, so that was never my thing. But to watch the influence that media has on people is intense, and a friend of mine from Europe commented one time, and she said, and she's French, so she wasn't being rude. She was just being honest and French.
She was being French.
And she said, I love Americans. You're so optimistic, but you're also so gullible. You believe what anybody tells you online. Wow. She's like, and she says it's really an extortion of this American optimism at its worst. And I thought about it, and I was like, well, that's kind of true. We got raised in the Walter Cronkite era, and the talking head's going to tell us the things. And, now they're putting all these political ads, and we're talking consciousness, on media online. And as you mentioned, TV's kind of sucking wind here, so it's all streaming and online now. And my daughter, Rene, was seeing these political ads, and political ads are terrible across the spectrum. They distort.
Pretty bad.
They're pretty bad across the spectrum. And this one happened to be a right-wing guy taking pot shots at one of our Democratic tester or senator here. And my daughter was like, "Oh, I heard that Tester blah blah blah," and it wasn't true. I actually know John Tester actually, and Montana. Everybody knows everybody here. And so I was just like, that's not true, honey. Where'd you hear that? And she says, oh, it was in an ad and it was on TikTok or something. thought to myself, oh my God, this cannot actually be happening. That we are.
Oh my gosh. It's true, though. I mean, I have a friend who is in her 50s, and she watches stuff on TikTok all the time, and she gets all panicked, and she'll, call me or message me about some horrible thing that's getting ready to happen. And I keep saying, stop getting your news from TikTok. There's no fact checking there.
Yeah, that's a t-shirt. That's a t-shirt. Stop getting your news from TikTok. Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. But she, she'll fall right into it every single time. And then I'll explain to her what's really going on by, pulling up some real articles and things. And this is not an advertisement, but I have a friend who's an influencer from Australia, and she recently stumbled across this news site. And I've heard other influencers actually advertising it, but she was just using it. Called Ground News. Have you heard about that?
I have not. No.
It is really good, and I've actually subscribed. It's really inexpensive, but you go there for whatever's going on, whatever news you're looking for, or whatever news is happening currently, and it tells you the source, the platform that it's on, whether it's left-leaning, right-leaning, or moderate, and how they're based in fact. What percentage do they rank in actuality and in presenting the truth?
Wow.
And you can go through there and you can read all sides and the middle and then make your, critical thinking choice.
Wow, I love that.
And, it's kind of fun. You kind of get lost in it, because
sure.
One article and it leads you to something else. And of course, I do that all the time on my computer anyway.
Yeah.
Get caught in all kinds of threads and rabbit holes and everything else. But yeah, I mean, I think, people have been not allowed to have good news sources. I think that they've been done a huge disservice.
Well, and it's hard, and what was that called again? Let's repeat that for everybody.
Groundnews.com. I think it is Ground News.
Okay, Ground News. Ground News. That's awesome. All right. So one of the things that I'm looking at with all of this is, the topic of the podcast, and we've got so many amazing other topics that we started to open up in this podcast. And this particular podcast is about where is the line in politics and spirituality and consciousness. And I think, Rene, because we're coming right up on the end of our time here, I think we are both talking about the fact that there is no line, because consciousness is politics and politics is consciousness. And when we have these news sites that are leaning in one way or the other way and distorting facts one way or the other way, that affects consciousness. And like you said, here's these influencers who are getting paid by Russia to get out there and keep saying civil war, civil war, civil war is coming. Well, then you have enough people running around saying civil war is coming. I've had clients call me up, Rene, and they are just devastated and terrified. And they're saying things like, oh my God, there's a civil war. I heard a civil war is coming. And I'm like, can we just unplug your fear a minute? And can we think about the fact that a civil war at this point is not a civil war in the 1800s. The United States has the world's most well-funded military, which is kind of scary. We have drones that get in there and go after all kinds of people anymore,
Yeah.
And so if you think about, there would not be a civil war would be nearly impossible or impossible. What are the folks going to do? Pick up their truck stop rifles and their soldier of fortune body armor that they bought on Amazon.com and get out there and, fight the military? I mean, the idea of a civil war, we're already at an ideological war, but the idea of a civil war, when I look at it, in the psychic ethers in the future. It is a highly improbable event due to the difference that in the weapons. Not everybody's carrying around the same musket with the same musket ball in it anymore, and the same powers and laws. It's a different time frame. And so to have all this hysteria, and that affects consciousness, right? And being able to have this conversation with you, and I just have to say this for everybody listening out there. I am so proud of you, Rene, for what you have achieved in your career and what you continue to achieve. And you were producing when not a lot of women were producing, and you're still producing, and you're still putting content out, and you're a huge facts junkie. I mean, you researched the dickens out of stuff before you talk about it. And you were saying you were kind of chicken about this or that. Are you chicken, or are you just recognizing that people, because of this consciousness tip that we've had, are really losing their own boundaries and unable to moderate in a way that would be respectful or even safe sometimes? We have people in Montana who are afraid to put up John Tester signs for our state, let alone Harris and Waltz signs, because they'll get notes left on their car that are like, leave this state and blah. And I'm just thinking to these people, you say that to my face, buddy. I'm a fourth generation Montana. I'm not afraid of you and your gun. We all have guns out here. Hello, it's Montana. So it's like, what are you thinking, man? So Rene, just before we go here, you are such a wealth of information. And I want my listeners to get out there and follow your show. And, folks, if you're a right-leaning person and you're listening to all this and you're like, oh my God, F you guys, and you're liberal, whatever, I would I would highly encourage you guys to go check out Rene's show, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, because it is phenomenal. And Rene gets UFO whistleblowers on there, and she gets military folks on there. She's got a lot of folks who can lean right-wing on there, talking about all kinds of incredible world events. And that show is Nighvision Radio, and you can find it at kgradb.com. That's KGRA Digital Broadcasting, which is an extremely large and popular hub for paranormal, metaphysical, a lot of UFO whistleblower shows. If you enjoy those types of podcasts, there's some true crime, I think, in there. Isn't there some true crime, or am I just making that up? I thought I saw some true crime there too.
I do throw some true crime in there sometimes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's vintage crime.
Yeah.
As well. But yes, I've definitely had some crime in there. Usually, there's something mysterious about the crime, or even paranormal. Either that, or it's correcting the record on the story that was originally told. That sort of thing. But yeah, do a lot of hidden history and that sort of stuff. So
where can they find you too? I mean, because you're syndicated all over the place, aren't you? Isn't Nighvision Radio all over?
Yeah, it's on all the platforms. But to find it, I think on all the platforms, you look up KGRA. It's on their channel on all the platforms. Although I think you can just search it and find it individually. Nighvision.
I found
it's all
it.
one word.
Nighvision, one word. I found it on Spotify, and it pulled up the KGRA network platform, but I found your show. It went right to your show. So Nighvision Radio, guys, with Rene Barnett. This has been such an incredible opportunity. Keep your eyes peeled, too, for a reposting of her award-winning film Bloodline about the life of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. That'll rock you to the core. If you want some behind-the-scenes, real-life Da Vinci Code stuff, it's a documentary. It is not a fictional piece. And Rene, I just want to thank you for coming on. I wish I had 100 hours with you, and we're going to get you back on again so we can continue these incredible conversations.
Great. Can I give out my email address?
Absolutely.
Might be interested in trekking over to France. I do a lot of tours in southern France, and on the Trail of Mary Magdalene and the Knights Templar and all kinds of amazing people and groups that have been there through the centuries. And I'm opening a business there, which will be a tourist center. So I'll be operating out of there at some point, maybe by next spring. But if you're interested in reaching me, my website is, I'll say it and then I'll spell it. It's New Renes, and that's NEWRENNIES.org, newrennies.org. And the email address is info@newrennies.org. So shoot us a question or anything you might be interested in, and we will definitely get back to you right away.
I love that.
Thank you for letting me do that shameless plug.
No, girl, that was actually my neck. You know what? You just beat me to it. I love it. I was getting ready to set you up for it, but no, I'm glad you did, because I know you've got all these incredible ventures coming up, and I'm so excited for all of them. They're a long time coming. So everybody, let's all send our love to our guest today, Rene Barnett, a dear pal. And Rene, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, it's totally my pleasure. Thank you so much, Danielle.
You are welcome.
I got to get you on Nighvision now. You know that.
Heck yeah. I'm going to head over to Nighvision and we can talk about all the things. That'll be awesome. And everybody, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next podcast.